This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the Steam Machine's verified rating requirements, random topics, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 128. I am your host, the man whose life's resolution sometimes drops to 240p but always maintains at least 60 frames per second, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me as always, the man who requires his life to run at a minimum of 1080p 60 frames per second, Justin, better known as I'm Zeracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
The week's been okay. It's been pretty uneventful for the most part, but that's not a big downer for me as far as I'm concerned. But I guess a couple of things that I found interesting enough were that first is that I am going to be starting or try to get started with a new music project. That's something that just popped into my head, and so I thought, you know what? I might try fleshing this out some. So I'm not gonna say when that will be coming because that'll take a while between things, and it's not really an immediate concern for me right now. But that's something that I'll try working on sometime in the near future. But then I think this was Friday it's probably Thursday, Friday. I just happened to be on Amazon and I saw that the base or Mega Man Battle Network base model kit that I had pre-ordered originally some months ago and was canceled, that popped up, and I thought this might just be a third-party seller trying to mark up prices and resell and stuff. But then I saw, no, this is the actual official seller, and
Nice.
I said, okay, let me go ahead then and get that. So I ordered that. It arrived today, and so at some point I'm gonna go ahead and start building that. So I'm glad I have that one. I still have to find the Mega Man one. I found that I was able to get the Dark Mega Man one, but I just want to get the regular Mega Man one, and I think that's pretty much all of the Battle Network models. There might be a Proto Man one, but I'm not certain right now. But yeah, so at least I've got that one, because Base was one that I really wanted to get. So I'm just glad that I finally got that one. But other than that, though, not much has really happened this past week.
All right. Yeah, not much on my end either. I mean, obviously, it's been shorter time since the last time we recorded. For reference, those listening, we're recording on Sunday just because of scheduling stuff for this week. But trying to think, apart from getting the car stuff taken care of, just getting it paid for and all that. I'm trying to think if there's anything really significant. I mean, my in-laws got in on Friday, and didn't really do much of anything past couple days. I've started helping my son with building this wooden wrecking ball kit that he got a while back. I think he got it for his birthday, and he finally, asked me to do it. And initially, when we were going to do it, like about a month ago, the wood glue that was in it, because it was a used kit, like a previously owned kit that just didn't get finished, was completely dried out, so we couldn't use it. And so then we were going to buy some wood glue and work on it the following weekend. But then, of course, that was when I got the stomach flu, so we didn't do it then. Now, last weekend just ended up being really busy, especially with everything, getting the car and all that. So we finally got to work on it yesterday. We did some of it, and then we did the other major half of it today, although it was missing a couple of things from the kit. It was missing some what are they called? Not nuts, but it's gonna bug me. Give me 1 second. Let me find it, because I had to look it up before. I had to look up more of them, and we had to go to Home Depot to rubber washers. So it's supposed to have 4, and it only had 1, and part of it just you needed to have it for the kit. So that, and then it was missing like one of the wooden dowels that it's supposed to have for turning the crank on it. And that was less important, but it was still just like, we're already going to Home Depot, might as well look. Thankfully, we were able to find what we needed and finish putting together the parts that we could do. It has to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll finish it up. So, not much left. It's mostly just taking the 2 parts that we built, the base and the crane part of it, the arms, and then just attach them together, and then attach a string and the wrecking ball itself, and that'll be fun. So, but then, yeah, other than that, I mean, this week we have our marriage retreat. So, since my in-laws are here, obviously, they'll be with the kids, and then we'll go to that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning, and then come back after that. And be back at church on Sunday, so that'll be good. Last year was a little more stressful because the way it was scheduled, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we had to try and figure out who could do music on Sunday, because both us and the couple that normally sings were going to be gone. And so while we had someone to play guitar, we didn't have people to sing and everything. And it was just like, it was becoming more complicated than we wanted it to be. So it's kind of stressful figuring that all out, but we're all going to be back. I'm not playing this coming week, but neither my wife or I are playing. So they have the other guitar and violin players, and then the couple that normally sings will still be singing, even though they'll be at the marriage retreat as well. But since we'll all be there Sunday morning for church anyway, it works out really well. But yeah, we have the same speaker this year that we had last year. His not lessons, but I don't know what you, I guess you, not lectures. What's the term I'm looking for?
Not sermon, is it?
No, it's not really sermons, because it's basically just like different sessions where he's talking about different aspects of marriage, from a biblical perspective and everything. And there's a specific word I'm looking for, and I can't think of what it is off the top of my brain. But the point is that he's coming back again this year, and then he's also going to be preaching at church on Sunday, so that'll be cool. He's really good. Really enjoyed him. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything else. Been pretty uneventful for the most part, so yeah, it'll be interesting. I guess one thing that's also going to be interesting is my boss, my direct supervisor, is going to be gone for a couple of weeks starting Tuesday, so he'll be off. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I know that there's plenty of stuff I can do. It's just a matter of like, okay, I need to write out a list of these are all the things I want to get done while he's gone, and then try to just knock everything out. And because I just don't want to feel like I don't have a direction. And like, I know I can still reach out to him if I need to, but I want to let him enjoy his vacation. So yeah. But anyway, that all being said, what have you been playing this less than a week since we last talked?
Well, first game that I really didn't do too much gaming, but first game that I played was something that I've been waiting to play for a long while. And the reason why I haven't played it was because I was waiting for White Day, and that coincidentally is the name of the game, White Day. Now, for those who are watching and are confused and wondering, what is White Day supposed to be? It's actually an East Asian holiday. It's sort of a, I guess you could say, supplement, complement, sequel, whatever, to Valentine's Day. And traditionally what happens in East Asian countries is that the girl gives candies or whatnot to a guy, and then the guy reciprocates that on March 14th, known as White Day. So it's 1 month after Valentine's Day, same date every year. And it's been in my library. I bought it some time ago, like 5, 6 years ago, and I said I actually want to start playing the game on White Day, and so I just never did for one reason or another. But I did yesterday, and it's it's been a bit of a mixed bag for me so far because starting it off, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I wasn't certain how horror-ish it is because it's a horror game. It is a horror game, but it's not your it's not like as horror, at least so far, based as say something like Resident Evil or Evil Within or something like that, because it does seem a bit more grounded, and even in the aspects where you do see like the janitor, who so far seems to be one of the main antagonists. Like, he beats this one kid with a baseball bat, but it's not like bloody or anything like that either, so it's not like that big of a horror thing. But it does make things tense because if he catches you, he will chase you. But initially, like, nothing was happening at all, and I wasn't able to figure out how to progress the story, and I was like, well, is anything gonna even happen at all? Until I realized there was just like this one thing that I missed out, and that's why I couldn't make any progress at all. Then eventually, once the janitor does appear and start chasing you, it's just a pain because he is relentless, and it's not like he's fast or anything, but you can run out of stamina if you run. And also, you can't really run because if he hears you, he will chase you. And so I've had to run back and forth through the school trying to get away from this guy, and even when I tried to go into a room and duck and hide, unless there's some sort of furniture blocking his view of me, he will see me, and I have to run all the way across the school again, trying to find another room to hide from, because if he sees me go into a room, he's going to go into the room with me. So it should, that took me probably about 10-15 minutes just to get away from him because he was just chasing me. And then after that point, it was just a matter of trying to like make some more progress. So eventually I was able to find what I needed to do to get the next part of the story, and then it got to this puzzle, which is part of the video that you're seeing now, where I'm supposed to find a way to get this girl out of this room. And that part pretty much stumped me because initially I wasn't certain what I was supposed to do. I was trying to go figure out like, okay, I need to go through all these lockers, I need to find everything I need, and it wasn't making sense at all. And eventually, right at the very end, I realized, oh, hey, there's like another room with stuff in it that I can use to like get there's I think an air spray, a bug spray can, which I thought, all right, cool, if I have a lighter, if I use that, maybe I can burn down the vines blocking the doors, and then there was no option for that, so I said, okay, let me look around, and I found this I guess poison bottle, and there are these weird plants actually that I'm supposed to pour them into and kill the plants. Unfortunately though, there were only 3 that I found, and I thought to myself, all right, there's nowhere else I can go so far. And I said, and I hope this game's not telling me I have to go back around the other side of the school to burn more plants. And I'm thinking to myself, I have less than 30 seconds left. I cannot do this. So I did end up running out of time, and I said, you know what, I'm done for right now. I feel like I've had enough of this right now. I might come back to this again later on, I don't know, but I just wanted to at least finally play this game on White Day, so that way I could, you know, pop the champagne for that. But yeah, that's what I've done there. But then I went back and played some more Hades 2, and I think I'm really just getting into a good rhythm with this, just because I've been playing some more overworld runs, and those have been successful so far, and I'm like, okay, cool, I think I've got a pretty good feel for everything. Now I am trying to do another run with the Argent Skulls, just because I do need that for the one for that one minor prophecy / achievement where you complete all surface runs with all 6 weapons. So that's like the one weapon I haven't completed a run with, so I'm hoping I can get the one weapon upgrade that will allow me to get the get the skill that you mentioned before.
Right.
I've been trying to get like as many hammers as I can find, but
Yeah.
I've only been able to find 2 so far. But making progress with that, and then I've also been doing some more pitch black stone trials as well. So I've been completing those. I'm not certain how many there are in total. I've completed all the ones available to me, but I've since learned that you unlock more as you unlock weapon aspects, and there are still several that I haven't unlocked yet. So I'm gonna work on those. Also, I think it was today I finally actually looked at the list of prophecies and saw that it does detail everything you need to do to find the fates. I've done two of the requirements so far. I think it's just I have to fully, I guess, I'm not sure if I have to max out relationships or just talk enough with the people to get this done. But I think the ones I think I need to do is probably Kronos, Heracles, I can't remember who the rest are, but I after looking at the list, I'm pretty sure I know who each person is, so it's not gonna be hard to do that. It's just a matter of finding them in my runs and doing what I have to do there. But yeah. Oh, and then I did my first what's it called again? The first arena battle. And I'm very disappointed because that was a fight I should have won, honestly, because everything was in my favor. I had the right boons. I had a decent weapon. The problem was I just was impatient, and I kept sort of misjudging the fact that Zagreus does a double spin attack, and so I said, all right, I'll dodge the first spin. All right, I'm gonna go attack you. Nope, he does another spin, and I'm like, he's done this so many times, and I keep forgetting about that. So I did die and lose, and I'm like, oh, I was so close too, because he did, of course, have Death Defiance, and I got through that. I was like, all right, cool. I didn't realize you could do that, but all right, that's fine. I'll just do it all over again. And then when he had probably about 25% of health left, then he got me. I said, that was my fault. I had this and I lost it because I was just too impatient. But I learned for next time. So I don't think I'll do it this run though, because my current run I'm still on the surface with the Arcane Skulls, and I do not want to be facing him with those things. Yeah. So next run I'll do that. But yeah, making some more progress, finishing up some of the side character storylines and stuff like that, so making progress on that as well. But yeah, all in all, still a good game, and I am still enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah, I remember I lost to him the first time pretty badly. I think I accidentally started the fight like on a run when I had barely started, and it might have been during either one of the Blackstone trials or when I had the fear active. And yeah, I lost pretty badly. After that, I've beaten him most of the times I faced him. I think there was one or two other ones where I lost, but I've probably beat him about 10 times altogether. So yep, good stuff. It's funny, when you talked about with White Day. So as soon as I saw the title of the game before I actually looked at the footage and everything, I'm just thinking, what is this, like a dating sim, or is this like Doki Doki Literature Club, where it starts seeming like it's a dating sim and then turns into a horror game? But yeah, of course, once it started playing, and it was just like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. It's a horror game and all that. So interesting stuff. All right. As far as what I've been playing, it's literally just one game. It's just Death Stranding. I have been working little by little on getting the remaining achievements. Right now, I'm almost done with all of the premium deliveries I need. I just need 6 more that are time sensitive to get the achievement for the 20 and the 20 unique ones. And then let's see here. I have to find all the remaining data chips. I have a handful more craftable things that I need to get, which are, I think, pretty much all of the remaining ones are the PC specific ones that are Half-Life themed. So I think I've found like 3 total of the companion cubes that you need for getting those, and that's it so far. So I have that. So I have those 2 achievements. Then I have one where I have to connect all facilities to the UCA, which I think I just have 2 more that still need to be connected, and then maxing all of those out. And I think there's one other one. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, there's just one more beyond that. I have a total of 6 achievements, one of which is what you get for getting all other achievements. So I would say it's unlikely that I'll have them all before Death Stranding 2 drops this week, but considering the fact that I won't be playing Death Stranding 2 until Saturday evening at the earliest, since I'll be out Thursday, Friday, it's really not a problem. And either way, I'm definitely gonna finish them up because I'm close enough. And like, I've done most of the really hard ones. Like, I think the one that's gonna take the longest by far is really just making sure that I track down all the data chips, because I have like probably another 20 of them to find. I mean, at least it shouldn't be too hard to figure out where I need to go to find them, because the game kind of gives you a list of all the different ones, and you can pretty easily just look up, okay, where's this one? And then, find it from there. So it's just going to require lots of trekking around to get that completed. But yeah, that's really it. That's the only thing I played. It's basically been, I played some of it just on my desktop, some of it on the laptop, and then some of it streaming from my desktop to the Steam Deck. So, but yeah, that's it. That's all I've done. That's all I've done in the past several days.
Okay. I've got a question, which it sort of came from me watching some of your footage from last week, and I saw you had a truck that you were driving around in, and so I thought about it because of how intricate or how detailed some of the mechanics in the game are, like how you need to drink water and stay hydrated, but at the same time you also have to relieve yourself as well. I was just thought about it. Do you have to worry about refilling your fuel in your vehicle, or?
Well, it's battery powered. They're battery powered, so it's
okay.
It's recharging the battery. So there's I can't remember the name of the structures, but there's structures that people can put up or that you can put up that recharge batteries. And then also anytime you're on the grid, like if you're on a road, or if you're on one of the paved roads, or if you're on like a bridge, things like that, it doesn't drain the battery while you're on there. So there's that. And in reality, with the whole like staying hydrated and relieving yourself, technically that's only needed to a small degree, because really it's not really getting hydrated, it's more replenishing stamina, or extending your stamina, as the case may be. So, but yeah.
And I guess sort of as a follow-up question then is, if your battery happens to die and you have to, of course, continue traveling on foot, will you have to come back later and retrieve your vehicle, or?
No, because you can fabricate another, or you can find one of the ones that's around the world. I mean, especially if you're playing online, you'll come across random vehicles all the time. I mean, like early on in the game, you don't come across them much, but as you get in, within a few chapters, they start popping up all the time. And you'll see like online structures and all that people have built. So yeah. But I guess one last thing I'll mention is I think I got another like 3 achievements since we last talked of the ones I needed, so getting there. Most of them are very close. It's just really, apart from finding the data chips is really the one that's going to take the longest of the remaining ones, and that really I'll just use a guide to help me find the rest. So at least I don't have to worry about like wandering around hoping to come across them. It's just more I look up which one I need and then look up where it is. So yeah.
So good stuff.
All right. Well, in terms of topics tonight, we only have one like actual news topic, and then we're just going to talk about other random things. We both came up with some questions or at least a question each to ask each other. So this may end up being a shorter show tonight, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, especially considering how frequently we go over 2.5 hours. But we'll just kind of see how that goes. So the topic for tonight is regarding the Steam Machine and Steam Frame verification requirements. Now, the Steam Frame requirements are not as significant, to be frank. And I'll just quickly bring up that information. So the actual Steam Frame requirements, in order to get the verification sticker, they have to be fully playable with Steam Frame controllers for VR games. Actually, no, I think it's period. They have to be fully playable with Steam Frame controllers, period. In terms of performance, standalone VR titles have to be able to hit 90 frames per second, and the standalone 2D titles have to be able to do 30 frames per second at 1280 by 720. And as far as my understanding goes, this is if it's playing directly off the headset, not if it's streaming to the headset that is talking about these. So makes a lot more sense, especially for, non-VR titles being able to do that. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how all that works. But that's less relevant to the discussion. The major thing is the requirements for being Steam Machine verified. So, of course, every game that is verified on the Steam Deck is automatically verified for the Steam Machine, because the Steam Machine is 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck, so obviously anything that runs well enough on the Steam Deck to be verified will run at least that well, if not significantly better. Hopefully it'll be significantly better because it's a lot stronger. Has same input expectations as the deck, but the minimum requirement for visuals and performance, resolution and performance, is that it has to be 1080p at 30 frames per second to get verified badge. And that is definitely something that, well, let's discuss it. So why don't you start us off, especially since you're more of a snob about that than I am.
Okay, so yeah, I definitely am going to put on my. This is where I get full PC elitist right here. So while I definitely find the Steam Frame requirements, agreeable, especially considering the fact that it's using, I think, much weaker hardware. It's using even ARM architecture, so it's not like it's using something that is familiar. So that's agreeable. I have no problem with that. But the Steam Machine, though, what are we doing here? I mean, I didn't like the fact that the minimum requirements for the Steam Deck were 30 frames per second. All right, and there was the whole, well, it's a handheld, so it's not gonna be as powerful. This is a fully dedicated system. This is a full-fledged PC here. It has a dedicated GPU in it. Okay, it has the whole works: CPU, GPU, RAM. Its own power supply. And yet we're still talking about 1080p, 30 frames per second. This is a watering down of PC standards here. 1080p 60 should have been the minimum. And yes, I do understand that the Steam Machine is not a beast in any sense of the word. This is something that's, with the exception of maybe like the CPU, it's essentially the same hardware that I was using, or at least the GPU was essentially the same level as the one I was using before. And I was getting, like a 1080p 60 FPS experience, maybe 90 in some cases, but 60 FPS was like what I was getting, especially for like Unreal Engine 5 games. So why are we saying that 30 should be the standard for something like this? And, you could say, well, it's because it's a PC that's been put in a console form factor. I'm like, well, yeah, it's might have a form factor of a console, but it's not a console. Like, let's just get that straight. Valve even says it's a PC, and we all know it's a PC. I mean, you could probably go ahead and, if you wanted to, install Windows on this thing just because it's a PC. But at the same time, I don't think we should be lowering our expectations. Like, I think we should raise our expectations for this thing rather than just say, okay, let's just keep it at 30 frames per second because, the Steam Deck was 30 frames per second. No, the Steam Deck was a handheld using weaker hardware. We're using more powerful hardware, and we're saying it's fine that it's still running at 30 frames per second. I don't care if the resolution is higher. We should not be using this type of frame rate. This should not be our bare minimum. So I'm very disappointed in Valve for saying that is a minimum, because they are essentially just lowering the threshold and not and I honestly think there's no reason why the Steam machine can't run games at 1080p 60. I mean, honestly, with some exceptions here and there, I'm very confident that most games should run at 1080p 60. Unless it's something that is extremely new, and is, like reusing Unreal Engine 5, which would really put a stress on it. But in which case, if you were going to be doing that, you could possibly use upscaling to help on that end. But for the most part, any other game that is new, it should be fine running at 1080p 60. Like, I have no doubts on that end. So why they're saying 30 is beyond me. It's just weird. I mean, I don't know why they did it, but I mean, at the very least, like you said, anything that's verified on the Steam Deck should definitely be able to run better. Like, Final Fantasy VII was verified, and I did not like how it performed there. But this would definitely be able to run Final Fantasy VII at 1080p, 60 FPS. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if it could do better, if the performance could be a little better. I know that actually it probably might be able to. You probably might be able to maybe get 75 out of it. I don't know, maybe 90.
So Remake definitely could do better, because Remake doesn't have the open world stuff. So it's, I mean, there's no doubt that it could run better. Rebirth, I would say, Rebirth, it could do 1080p 60 for sure. Because like my laptop is pretty equal in power, and it's doing it can do 1600p 60, almost locked.
Okay. So yeah, it can definitely do this stuff. It's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they said that. It's weird. I mean, again, it's more powerful hardware. It's more powerful than the Steam Deck, Steam Frame, and yet they're still saying 30. Like, I could understand the Steam Frame, like that's weaker hardware. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Valve said how the performance for that compared with the Steam Deck, but it's, probably roughly around the Steam Deck, maybe a little more powerful, who knows. But I'm not gonna expect to be able to do anything extraordinary. But the Steam machine definitely should be getting more, should be doing better. So while I don't think that it'll change anything, I don't think it's gonna be, I think it's still going to perform well, but I just think they should have just raised the raise the bar is
Mm-hmm.
essential. I'm saying, because it can definitely do better than this, and we shouldn't. I don't want PC to, as a just a platform, to have the expectations lowered to the point where we even say, well, maybe we should start having paid online because we've been allowing and tolerating other stuff for stuff that we've been outspoken against for years. Let's go ahead and start saying, hey, let's do this now. So I am just against this because it's absurd. We should be beyond this at this point in time, talking about 1080p 30 FPS. And I also say that for console too. Like, you guys should be expecting more and demanding better for your games as well. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right. Well, I don't think I would really disagree with you on anything, but I would kind of, at least I have a little more understanding perhaps. And let me just clarify here. I don't think that 30 FPS should be considered verified for the Steam machine. I think 60 should be the verification standard. I think that 30 FPS should just be labeled as playable. Plain and simple. I think that is a much more accurate thing. But I do kind of get the reason why they would say 1080p 30 could get verification status. And I think really what it comes down to is, I think what they're trying to do is for like these bigger, newer games, the ones that are more demanding, that are just not going to run better than 30 frames per second. I think that they're basically trying to encourage developers to put forth at least enough effort to make this thing, make their games good enough to get a verified badge, because that is the hope, of course, is to draw people into using Steam more, and if they use Steam more, then you get more people converted over to PC, or at least going in that direction. Now, that being said, once again, I still think 30 FPS should only be labeled as playable. I don't think it should be labeled as verified. I think that they need to change their standards from that standpoint. But I also see how some games, while developers definitely should make an effort to better optimize their games, I also see some of them, especially the Unreal Engine 5 games, where it's just probably never going to happen. I mean, the fact that they have Hellblade 2 as verified on the Steam Deck, that game does not look or run well enough. I mean, now it's better than it was before, but it's still not good enough. It doesn't deserve that verified badge on Steam Deck. Now, it should be a heck of a lot better on the Steam machine than it is on the Steam Deck, but even still, I don't know. Now, what I will say also is that I don't think the majority of games, with the exception of some of the newer titles, are going to have any problem doing 60 and above. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I mean, like, for example, like when I was running Death Stranding on my laptop, I mean, I think I pretty much just left it at default settings, and I think it may have been running at 1080p by default, because it seems to like transfer settings in the cloud and that sort of thing. Maybe not. I can't remember exactly, but I was getting over 100 frames per second on my laptop playing Death Stranding without any frame gen or anything. So, and I mean, of course, that's a great looking game. So the fact that my laptop can do that with a game like that, or like Destiny 2, for example, although I guess Steam machine, Destiny 2 wouldn't work because it's a Linux game, but I mean, because it's not supported in Linux. The point is that most games are going to easily be able to do well above that on the Steam machine. And yeah, I mean, I really do agree. I don't think 30 FPS should ever be acceptable as something deserving the verification badge. Now, if it was like 1440p 30, like that they would accept that, I could do up to 1440p 30, then it'd be like, okay, as long as that's native. And I think that this 1080p requirement is native 1080p and not upscaled 1080p, because if they'd say, oh, upscaled to 1080p is good enough for verification. It's like, no, that's garbage. That is nowhere near acceptable, or it shouldn't be acceptable. So at least if it's native 1080p, and then it can get above that with upscaling, get up to 4K and everything, and it's like, okay, that's not as bad. But still, I definitely don't want to see developers take advantage of these low requirements. I want them to actually push for better. But at the same time, I also just look at it and see that you also want developers to make an effort to make their games run well on the Steam machine, because that does draw more people into PC, and PC is a huge moneymaker. It's growing constantly. I forgot to bring up the story, and so I don't have it handy to talk about, but apparently PC gaming is growing rapidly, and it's expected to potentially completely overtake consoles in the future by 2028. I think they're saying there could be 1 billion people on Steam, and that's on Steam. That's not saying, like right now there's 1 billion potential customers, 1 billion plus on PC, or 2 billion plus or whatever, but potentially having just 1 billion people on Steam alone would be humongous. And I imagine probably a lot of that is because of China, because they have more people on PC there than on consoles. That consoles are pretty much non-existent over there. But I don't know, this is definitely I'm not defending this, and I'm trying to be balanced as possible, to at least be understanding. I don't think it's acceptable, and I would not, if I was going to play a game on Steam machine, I would not accept 30 frames per second. I would not play the game if it only ran at 30 frames per second. I'm willing to accept that more on Steam Deck, because it is a battery-powered portable device that's not super powerful. But on the Steam machine, I would not play a game if it was only 30 frames per second. Now, on the flip side, the one situation in which I could see this being more acceptable, or at least I would be willing to accept it, are games that are hard capped at 30. Games like Shenmue or Okami HD, where it is hard capped at 30. It does not go above 30. There's no mods to get it above 30. You're stuck with that. Those are the only ones where I would say, okay, I understand that, even though I still think it should be able to do, at that point, it should be 4K 30. But at the same time, I don't know. This is one of those situations where I can't help but be in the middle in my brain. I think about both sides of the argument. I don't think 1080p 30 should be acceptable in this day and age, but I also at least I can see some situations where it might be technically okay, even if it's not ideal. And I don't think that should be the minimum standard. I think that they need to have a higher standard, even if that higher standard was saying 40 FPS at 1080p. That at least would be better. It's still 60 would be the ideal as the minimum standard for verification. But yeah. The only other thing I could see that would be a good potential idea, and I don't think Steam will do this, would be to have a setting that's in between verified and playable. Because playable obviously can mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of different things that can be reasons why it's labeled as playable rather than verified. But if they were to say verified requires 60 FPS or better, and then playable or whatever they put in between the two is saying the game plays at 30 frames per second, but isn't necessarily able to maintain 60. And then, have playable be, well, I don't know. I guess maybe playable really is the best rating. But yeah, I think that they need to change their standards. That's my TLDL.
I think the point you made about Valve trying to help help developers of newer games meet that requirement or verification status by saying 1080p 30 makes sense. To help help verify more games and get more people to play on Steam. I think that makes sense. But I think the reason why that's even necessary is partially, again, because Valve decided to make the Steam machine only with 8 gigs of VRAM. Which, if this had happened right in the middle of the whole AI stuff, I could be more forgiving, but they decided this before we had a RAM shortage. So that was their decision. They should have made that 12 gigabytes of VRAM, I think,
agreed,
at the bare minimum. But I think just doing that did not help at all. I mean, granted, in hindsight, it probably helps in this current situation with RAM being as scarce as it is. Having, not having that extra 4 gigabytes probably helps, but I think still, as far as performance goes, it's definitely gonna hurt. But yeah, like you said, I agree. Most games will or should be running at 1080p 60, with few exceptions of more modern, more demanding games. But maybe, like you said, maybe this will help get devs to try to optimize their games, And I mean, I think that even if they try to optimize for that, it would help across the board, because if you can optimize for the Steam machine, then, desktop users with, relatively powerful and maybe even slightly less powerful hardware will benefit from that, because the devs will be developing around the Steam machine. So it's like, all right, we have to, make sure the game's more optimized for weaker hardware, and so people who have relatively or near that power level will be able to, take advantage of that and say, all right, cool, because the game probably wasn't running all that well before, because they're trying to work on the verification for this. Now we're getting updates and my hardware's more optimized now. So it's like, all right, cool. I had like a RTX 3060 and it wasn't doing that well. Now it's like, all right, new updates, and now I'm getting better performance because they decided to optimize their game. So I do see the one benefit from that, but I just think that we shouldn't need that. But yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that this is making me think about the most, and I mean, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, is I'm just so curious what the price is going to end up being. And obviously, so much of it is because of the RAM crisis right now. But, like, I'm legitimately wanting to grab one of these. And the Steam Frame. But if they're going to be, like, ridiculously expensive, like, I'm not spending $1,000 on this. It's not worth it to me. Like, that's not worth it to me at all. But like $700-800, I mean, $700, I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy it, because it would be useful more than anything, so that I could have an additional PC for my kids to use, just because of the simple fact that they're frequently fighting over using PC. Speaking of which, just kind of like a random side thing, my kids have all been playing through Thank Goodness You're Here after watching me play it a bunch. I realized there is some stuff in there that's more mature, but most of it is like, it flies completely over their heads. They're not going to pick up on it at all, and mostly it's just really, really funny. But yeah, so yeah, just the pricing of all this is really going to make a big difference, because my hope is that they'll find a way, even if it means taking a loss initially, to do a bundle. For like $1,500 for the machine and frame and a controller. If they could do that, I would buy it. I would buy the bundle, because I'm very interested. If they can't do that, then I'll be happy to get a couple of controllers and call it good, and just wait until the prices go down after the RAM crisis is over. But yeah. Interesting time in which we live, for sure.
So I guess sort of as a follow-up question to that, considering how Valve recently changed the status and said that, or pretty much confirmed that's gonna be that all the hardware is shipping out this year, when do you possibly expect we could hear about pricing and pre-orders?
I'm gonna say June is probably when we'll hear something. If the RAM crisis hadn't happened, you know, if things had proceeded the way that they were when this thing was first announced, we would have probably already heard the pricing and had pre-orders open and everything. But obviously right now they're just in a spot where it's really hard to do because of how expensive everything is. So
yes, that sounds about right. It's I was thinking maybe mid to late April, early May, but yeah, June.
Yeah.
Would also
I mean,
make sense.
I would be ecstatic if we could hear about it that soon, because then at least we could know whether or not it's going to be worth going for, because it's definitely going to be selling out. Even though, thankfully, because of the fact that they do have specific thing, I mean, you have to have a Steam account. I'm pretty sure it's going to be limit 1 per customer and all that. You know, that'll help a lot with scalping, but it's still going to be, you know, we still have to wait and see what happens with that.
And I guess I'm sorry. One more follow-up question.
No, go for it.
If you think, you know, if it's gonna be around like by the end of this first half, about when do you think they could possibly be shipping them out?
I'm gonna say like September at the earliest would be my guess. But I don't know. I mean, I think the big thing is going to be just a real question of, are they going to take a gamble and say that the price is going to be lower, just thinking, okay, there's a chance. I mean, you know, we're gambling to see if we can get ourselves, I mean, if this whole crash will happen to where the prices will drop and then we'll actually be able to make a profit in the end, or if it's going to be more like, we're just going to have to charge what we have to charge, and people are just going to have to deal with it if they really want it. Because if they're willing to gamble on it, they could ultimately end up profiting from it if the crash happens soon enough. If it doesn't, then it could be a big loss for them. I mean, I don't think it's going to cause them to really hurt ultimately, because they make so much money. But at the same time, you know, obviously they don't want to just be losing money on all these units produced, even though they're obviously not selling anywhere near the number that like PlayStation and Nintendo and even Xbox are, because they're only selling it through one store instead of, you know, selling it through all over the place.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That definitely will be the big thing, because I mean, if they do sell it at a high enough price, then I could honestly see it, even if the hardware itself is good. I have no doubt it'll be pretty decent. I mean, considering how well they did with the Steam Deck. I think if they price it too high, sales-wise, it could probably end up being another Steam machine, essentially, like its predecessor. Just because it's like, all right, people are saying, well, why would I spend $1,000 plus on something that is much weaker than, you know, other hardware, even a PS5 Pro, and you know, what that would make sense. So I think they really just have to be smart about this. Like, I do hope that they do what you said and just take the gamble and hope that the AI bubble bursts sooner than later. Because like you said, they make enough money where they could just ride this whole thing out if they wanted to. And even if they had some losses from selling the units, you know, they're going to get that money back in just the revenue from games themselves. So I don't think that would be too big of an issue.
Okay. All right. So, one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I am trying to see if I can find the actual story, because it was a topic I forgot about that I had heard over the past week. And I haven't found it yet. If I find it later on, I'll share the article with you separately. But I don't remember exactly what his role was. I think he was just one of the top people at Bluepoint. One of the outgoing people at Bluepoint said that he thinks the reason why PlayStation would be pulling their games off of PC is actually not because of anything to do with Xbox, or at least not specifically, but it's actually that they're really afraid of Valve, because of the fact that Valve is basically encroaching in their territory with the Steam machine. Even though it's obviously going to be a weaker piece of hardware, it's still giving people ultimately something better in the living room. What are your thoughts on that?
That was not what I was going to expect to hear. Wow. I'm not entirely sure what to say. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't picture Sony being intimidated by Valve. I mean, for one thing, sure, the Steam machine is going to come in, it's going to do its thing, but I would argue that the biggest competitor it has, even though they would objectively lose, would be Microsoft, just because of the fact that Microsoft is going into that whole, with Helix, Xbox, PC, console hybrid. I would say because of that, because of what the Steam machine is, which is a PC, the Helix would be like the closest thing to a PC, and probably is for all intents and purposes, but I would find that to be the competitor and not like the PS6. So I have no idea why Sony would be intimidated. And again, even if Valve was trying to encroach upon their territory, they would objectively lose because the PS6 is going to sell more units than the Steam machine. Like you said before, Valve is most likely going to be selling this only on their storefront, and as a result, that means you have fewer units that can be sold to mass markets. And I mean, the Steam Deck itself only sold what, 2-3 million units. So, and that was also not in the middle of a RAM shortage. And sure, obviously Sony's gonna be impacted by that too, but considering the fact that we are in the middle of a RAM shortage, I definitely do not expect Valve to sell probably more than, I mean, at least in the next year or so, maybe around 1.5 million, 2 at most. So I don't know where this idea of Sony being scared of Valve would come from. That's interesting to hear. I would not expect that. But that's definitely interesting to hear. What are your thoughts on that though?
Well, I mean, the thing that interests me the most is the fact that this was coming from someone who was at Bluepoint. And that part makes it seem like it could almost be potentially more believable. And I mean, when you think about just what it is that Valve does with giving, basically it's like PlayStation fans technically can get a better experience of the PlayStation first party games on the Steam machine than they can on the PS5 Pro. Now, yes, they don't have PSSR, they don't have not necessarily going to be able to get 4K, but frankly, most of the stuff on PlayStation isn't running a native 4K anyway. So, it's something where those PlayStation titles that are on PC will be playable on the Steam machine. I don't think there's a single one of them that isn't going to be playable on the Steam machine. They all should be perfectly playable, even if you have to mess with settings a little bit. But PlayStation doesn't get any extra revenue off of that, apart from the initial purchase. People who are playing it on PC, on Steam machine, whatever, aren't paying for online or, getting nickeled and dimed all the time. So, I mean, it's an interesting thought. Obviously, a lot of this is also a question of, how true was this rumor versus not true. I mean, we still have to wait and see, what it is that PlayStation actually says, which, as I've said before, I don't think we'll hear anything until at minimum, I mean, at the earliest, probably like May or June, just because of the fact, I mean, I guess it could be as early as April, but probably more like May or June, just because Sony has to talk to its investors. And I mean, last year's Fireside Chat was filmed in May and, came out in June, like mid-June. So what exactly their strategy is, I mean, they're going to have to tell their investors one way or the other. So there's that. And then, of course, the question of whether they'll announce any of, ports of any further games, whether it's true that Ghosts of Yotei and Saros are not going to be coming over, or it's false. Are there other ports that they're bringing over? These are really just questions that we have to wait and see what Sony says before we can officially say, oh yes, this is true, or is it true? And even though Jason Schreier typically has a good track record with being accurate, there's also times where he's held stuff that he shouldn't have been holding on to because he wanted to sell a book. And, sometimes held on stuff for years, and so it's like, I don't know. We've spent a lot of time talking about the topic, and it's really one of those where we really just have to wait and see what it is that Sony says. And whether or not they're scared of Valve, that's yet to be seen. I mean, I could see the reason why they might be, but I could also see the reasons why they might not really care. And if they really are just taking their ball and going home, going to stop putting their games on PC, then that's just the way it is, I guess. But, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say on that topic.
All right. I guess the topic question I had was sort of similar, but it's for a different reason. So I wasn't able to figure out where this source even came from to begin with, but I saw a rumor or a theory floating around as to why Sony is pulling their games, and part of that had to do with the pricing of the PS6, and the fact that because it's going to be more expensive than what's based on what this says, allegedly more expensive than what people are used to currently paying for a console. It might impact sales, and because of that, Sony wants to sort of help get that money, get the revenue coming in, or try to make their games exclusive so that way more people buy those systems, rather than just say, all right, we'll just go to PC, and because of what Helix does, an Xbox, and buy the games there. So they were going to do that. So I guess my question is, I don't think this is really true, but it made me think about, considering what we've, based on speculation and rumors regarding the Helix price, what could you possibly actually see the PS6 being priced as, based upon what we know and possibly how things are going with the markets?
I guess really it's going to depend a lot on when they release it. If the I think the last rumor I heard was that they would probably announce it next year, and then they wouldn't actually release it until 2028. Which case, by that point, it's possible the RAM crisis could be over, and then they could just charge like more of a normal amount. I have a feeling that unless the RAM crisis, unless that crash happens before they announce it, they're not even going to tell us the price until closer to when it releases. Like, it's going to be probably within a couple of months before it releases. Yeah, if the RAM crisis resolves and before then and everything, because I believe it will resolve eventually. If it does before then I would say, I'm going to say probably $800 for the base PS6, and then probably either $50 lower or higher for the PS6 handheld, the Canis. I'm not really sure if it would be cheaper or more expensive, because like I could see from both perspectives which way it would go. I do think it's going to be cheaper than the Xbox. I think that Sony's going to very intentionally price it lower, regardless of what that is. It's kind of like I'm sure you remember back when the PS4 and the Xbox One were revealed. The Xbox One was announced, had Kinect bundled in, announced at $500, and PlayStation, in response to that, PS4 was $400. And the rumor, at least, was that originally they had planned to actually include uh, whatever type of PlayStation camera they had in it, and they were also going to charge $500. But after they saw the response to the Xbox One with the Kinect, they pulled the camera off and then just did it for $400, which I thought was a brilliant move at the time. I mean, I still think it was a brilliant move. I mean, that's a big part of what just gave them the advantage at the beginning there. There was a whole host of other issues, of course, with the Xbox One, the TV, and the other stupid stuff that Don Matrix said. But really, the price was definitely a big deal for a lot of people. And I mean, at the time, I hated Xbox. Like, I was a huge Xbox hater. I was just making fun of it. And of course, I thought that the name Xbox One was stupid anyway. I still think it was pretty stupid, but not as stupid as I thought it was when I first heard it. And of course, compared to Wii U, it really wasn't as bad. So, even though I was very much a Nintendo fanboy at the time, but I really think, as far as the PS6 price goes, if the crisis has not resolved itself by that point, which, I hope it doesn't take that long. But if it hasn't resolved by that point, I could see them charging $900 to $950. I think either way they're going to go for a lower price than whatever the Xbox is going to be for Project Helix. And if they have like some other type of separate handheld, because I don't know if they're actually still going to do like a separate handheld, or if they're just going to call the Xbox Ally X their separate handheld. Because they could do it either way, and I know that like Windows 11 is getting like an Xbox mode added to it or something like that sometime in the not too distant future. Like, or not, I think it's the not big picture, whatever their equivalent is, full screen experience. I think that they're adding that to Windows, so that people can have that experience that's been great for a lot of people on the Xbox Ally X. And I think they also had added it to the regular ROG Ally X. So that's essentially my thoughts on that.
And I guess one thing, so the pricing you mentioned, that at least for the base, that's say with the disk drive, and you would probably say the
I don't think the disk
version's
drive is
100.
going to be included. I think disk drive is going to be an extra thing that you have to buy separately. That's my personal belief anyway, because that's what they did with the Slim. I think the Pro. I'm pretty sure the Pro. Yeah, I think the Pro was the same deal, that you had to buy the disk drive separately. I could be remembering wrong. I might be wrong on that. I'll have to look that up. But
Okay. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I like I said before, I definitely don't think the pricing would really be a reason as to why they pull the games off, but I I definitely agree that it will definitely be cheaper than the I definitely think it will be cheaper than the Helix. But of course we don't know. I mean, granted, we don't really know too much about the Helix anyway in general, but
mm-hmm.
we know even less with the PS6, as far as what could even be inside of there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that Sony will probably try to be more competitive with their pricing.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna try to at least be $100, maybe $200 cheaper than the Xbox. But if they're holding back and saying we're gonna announce the next PlayStation in a year or two or so, then they probably would want to see, all right, what's Microsoft going to do, and we'll just
Yep.
counter that,
Yep.
essentially. But we'll definitely have to wait and see, obviously.
Yeah. And as I thought, the PS5 Pro does not come with a disk drive by default. I remembered now as well that, so by default, it does not have a disk drive and it does not have a vertical stand. It has like a little kickstand thing if you're doing it on its side. And then it, of course, it doesn't include the disk drive unless you buy it separately. So I could see them definitely doing that, being like 800, 850 for the base price, assuming that the RAM crisis is over by then, and then charging extra for the disk drive and the vertical stand. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that they are just going to do a response to Microsoft, and that they may charge less initially for the console, maybe even take a bit of a loss, but then they'll just nickel and dime their users because they know they can. And it's honestly, that's part of the problem with being stuck in that ecosystem. It's just that, they're going to do that to you. It's the same thing with the Apple ecosystem. They charge way more for everything. And yes, they're good products. Like, they're well-made products, but they're way too expensive for what you get. And although I have heard that there's some recent developments they've actually done to start making Macs more gaming capable, which I think is pretty cool, even though it's probably going to be way more expensive. But it's like, hey, I mean, I know people who would love to be able to game on their Macs, and their Macs just are extremely limited because of compatibility. Not necessarily a power issue, it's more compatibility. I mean, it's definitely nowhere near as powerful as what you can get on PC, but you also get a significantly smaller form factor. So, yeah, at least in general.
And I definitely agree that you can get good stuff, but for what you're paying, it's not worth it. And as far as compatibility goes, that's partially on, Apple for switching from stuff like using Intel chips and using, more consumer-wide stuff, and then going to their proprietary hardware as well. So that's like makes it harder for devs to work on that when you have proprietary components like that.
Yep. Indeed.
But yeah.
All right. I have a couple of different topics, and I'll just, do the first one here. These are not specifically gaming topics, and they're more kind of like hypothetical questions. So the first one, this is one that actually came to me in a dream, or well, it was inspired by a dream that I had. So if your home was on fire, and let's just assume you don't have any loved ones around, or if you do, that they can get themselves out safely. Same with pets, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't have any pets, and the only loved ones you would probably have around are family members visiting, niece and nephew, that sort of thing. But let's just say, okay, they're all safe. You're good to go from that standpoint. You don't have to worry about them. Let's just say in this hypothetical situation, and we're gonna say automatically you have your cell phone in your pocket. So we're completely discounting that. If you could only grab one gaming device and one non-gaming thing of any kind that you have to save before you have to get out of the house, what would you choose for each?
All right, define.
Okay, so
define gaming device, because.
Okay, so
what I mean is, if I have, say, my Steam Deck as a gaming device, but then I also have my laptop, would that laptop count as a gaming device or not?
I would say it counts as a gaming device because you can game on it. So I would say that the one thing that I would clarify on this is that game controllers are completely separate, and you're just going to assume that you're going to lose those in the fire. That those are gone. There's nothing you can do about it. You basically have the option. You can get your desktop, your laptop, your Steam Deck, some handheld device. You can get one of those, and that's it.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes it... I would almost say it's going to be the Steam Deck, but I'm torn because there are still files and stuff on my laptop that I would just be like, I would not want to lose that. So I would probably.
Well, here, let's make things easier. Let's just say your laptop stuff is backed up in the cloud. We'll give you that caveat because the whole point is we're saying what gaming device would you want to have, because your other stuff is technically separate from gaming. So we'll just say it's backed up in the cloud, your Google Drive, whatever, it's backed up.
Okay. So in that case, then I would definitely just say my Steam Deck, just because I really love that as a gaming device more than my laptop, and it's a handheld, so it would be pretty nice to have. Because for one thing, I definitely will be able to use my desktop without like a power, but so I would definitely take the Steam Deck. Now, as far as non-gaming device goes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a device, just something that's not gaming related, period.
Non-gaming related thing. It's gonna be really weird to me, because on one hand, I would love to grab my Bible and take that with me. On the other hand, I have a hard drive, just like a small hard drive, that has a lot of old files, it has videos, it has pictures and stuff. So it's like, which do I want to grab more? I mean, like, I know I could replace my Bible, but like, on the other hand, it's just like I still feel like I would need that with me. So it's like that would also, because of that, is like kind of a tricky thing for me to be also say to which one I would grab. I would probably just say the hard drive, just because there is stuff there that I know is irreplaceable. And while I would be remiss to lose my Bible, I could still go and get that, get that replaced.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I would say in this case, I would grab the hard drive.
All right. Yeah, like I thought about that a lot too, with the idea of doing the Bible and everything. And from the I mean, like, if we were in a culture where basically we just had the one Bible, we had no other access to Bibles, then I would be like, yes, absolutely. But because of the fact that we have digital Bibles and audio Bibles, it's very easy to get that replaced. That's the only reason why I said in the end that would not be my choice. It would be hard for me to let it go, especially because I have a nice leather bound Bible, and everything. It's a really nice actual leather Bible. But because of those reasons, I wouldn't choose that. My item that would be non-gaming related would be my guitar. And that's just because that one it's a guitar I've had for 20 years, and it's a very nice guitar that brand new, at least 20 years ago, was like $3,500. Now, I got it for a lot cheaper than that because I found it on eBay, and including shipping up to rural Alaska, it was like $1,922, which was still very expensive, but a lot less expensive than buying it brand new. And I've been using it for 20 years. So, I mean, it's literally been over 20 years since I got that guitar, and I've been using it ever since. So, yeah, that would be my non-gaming thing. Now, gaming thing, I thought about this quite a lot because, to kind of just back up and give background of where this came from. Basically, I had just a dream that was thinking about, like trying to save my family and everything from the fire, especially my pets, because the dogs are easy because, they'll run out. The cats have a tendency to run and hide, and I would be more worried about them, but I also recognize that if they aren't willing to run out to get safe, they're not going to make it. They're going to make it difficult and potentially put my life in danger for that. And like, if I could save them, I definitely would want to, but it's, not necessarily easy. It's like when we had the tornado drill and my black cat, Avocato, or Avocado, but I call him Avocado because that's how it's spelled. He had always been really snuggly with me before, but when I tried to grab him when we had a tornado thing going on, because I was just going to put him in the safest room in the house we have that doesn't have any windows or anything, which is our laundry room, because we have a safe room, like a big metal safe room, but it doesn't have a ton of room in it. It's basically like my mom had bought it for her and my grandma, so it's basically a 2-person safe room, and we can fit the 5 of us in there, but we wouldn't be taking the animals in. It's just too small for that. And so we put the dogs in the laundry room, and if we could get the cats, we would put them in there, but they pretty much run and hide, and so it's like, okay. And going back to Avocado, he was, after I tried to grab him, because of that time, he's been a lot more afraid of me, even though I was, trying to help him. So anyway, so it was that dreaming about that made me reflect on that some more and thought about, okay, if I was in a situation where I could only, where we had an actual fire and I had to try to see what I could salvage before it was too dangerous to stay, then, I would do everything I could, and I have, windows in my room to where I could, if I had to, I could throw stuff out the window. But if I was in a spot where I only have one thing to choose, that one was a little more challenging initially, because it was basically going back and forth between my desktop and my Steam Deck. Because the laptop, it's that in-between spot where, yes, I would like to have it, but if I could only pick one thing, which one would I choose? And the desktop, of course, can play everything. It can do everything I want it to do. It's great. It would be expensive to replace, but I ultimately settled on the Steam Deck, because while the Steam Deck can't play everything and definitely can't play anything anywhere near as well as I can play on my desktop, it's something that I don't have to have anything else in order to use it. Basically, all I have to have is a way to power it. I can, and it can play the majority of my game library on Steam and, GOG and all that. And it already has a controller built in and everything else. It could be used as a PC if I needed to use it for that. Yeah, it's not going to be able to run every single game, especially the more demanding games, but all things considered, it's still, I'd have access to the majority of my library, and portable gaming is what I do more anyway. So that would be my choice for those reasons.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And it's definitely, the timing of the question is definitely, I find that interesting, just because, and for viewers who don't know, so I mentioned this to Nathan yesterday, that tomorrow, as recording, like, my area is supposed to be getting some severe weather and stuff, and like big thunderstorm stuff, and multiple chances of tornadoes and stuff like that. And so because of that, that's why we're recording early, just in case the power goes out. But I did even think about it, like, yesterday, think about, all right, what stuff would I want to pack up, ahead of time, just in case we had tornado spotted in the area and stuff like that. And so the question you ask me now is, I find just to be very, I just found it to be interesting, and sort of like an on-time type of thing. Just think about, like, all right, what would I want to, like, save the most, if possible.
Yeah, it's funny, whenever we have the tornado, when we know there's going to be a tornado watch, or that there's potential for tornado, we'll all just pack, like, things we want to absolutely have. And so my backpack is big enough that I can fit my laptop, my Steam Deck, my Switch, potentially my Switch 2 as well. I think I got both of them in there, and my 3DS and my Vita. And so that way, it's like I get all those packed in there, and I'm just like, my backpack is very full, but I can get them all in there. It's packed ahead of time. If I had enough notice for something like that, then yes, I would pack as much as I could into my backpack, and I would just take it with me, because it's like, those things are hard to replace. some of those harder than others, especially things like the 3DS, for example, is a lot harder to replace because they're so expensive now. And, you know, I mean, the Steam Deck technically can be replaced with something else, but it still has a lot of sentimental value as well, especially since I put on the special shell and all that. The Vita, you know, those aren't as expensive as the 3DSs, but it's modded and everything, and it's like, I mean, if there was one of them that I had to leave behind, it would probably be the Switch 2, because that one I have the least attachment to, and there's only like a few games that I would even want to play on there. So, but yeah. The other reason why I thought about the Steam Deck as well over any other device is because of the fact that the Steam Deck can play any of the other games from my libraries, with the exception of the Switch 2 games. So technically, I could play any 3DS, Vita, you know, and Switch games on there in addition to the PC stuff. So that gives me a lot more capabilities from that standpoint. But yeah. All right. Did you have another topic you wanted to discuss?
Yes, and it's sort of going back to one of the discussions we had, which was with you mentioned this about Xbox mode coming to PC, and so I did see that announcement at that they made at GDC, the Game Developer Conference, and how it would be rolling out not next month to Windows, and they didn't say which markets, but just said select markets. And so I thought about it. Do you think we could possibly see pre-built PCs coming out with Xbox mode enabled, sort of like having the desktop equivalent of an Ally X, essentially? Just like having these pre-built PCs that out of the box are in Xbox mode, essentially, and just having that full console, like, I guess you could say, experience, but it's a PC.
Right.
Do you think that's something we could see in the future? Or do you think that, you know, if people are buying pre-built, especially gaming PCs, they'll just buy it and doing that? But I mean, especially, I guess even better, I would say, it would be something like the system integrators who specialize in making gaming PCs for people who primarily are just like gaming and like not doing anything else. I mean, they might maybe do live streaming in which case they would, you know, possibly use desktop mode. But do you think we could see something like that though, in general, just like gaming centered only PCs?
So, you know, thinking about that, my thought is what I think they'll do, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I think what they will do is they will have it built into Windows as a default, but what it will be is when you're doing the initial setup, you can say you want to use this primarily for gaming and boot into the Xbox mode, or do you want to use this for whatever and just do standard Windows mode? But still have the option of, if you want to make the switch, I mean, if you want to switch it over, you can switch it at any time. You know, it can be directly from the Windows menu. You know, you just click and go to gaming mode or whatever. That's what I think that they would do. At least that would be the smart thing to do, because that way it would give customers the option. Because everyone who's starting with a new PC, they're going to have to do that setup regardless. So, you know, why not build it into the initial setup? And that way, if people want to use it right away, they can. If they don't want to use it right away, then they can just completely skip that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. I didn't think about the fact of giving them that option to do it. I think giving users that agency, you know, giving them that choice is definitely better than just forcing them one way or another. So I think, like you said, they're gonna have to set it up either way. But setting up Microsoft accounts, so if they're gonna do that, going through that step, you might as well ask them, hey, which do you prefer? And then, of course, like you said, they still have the option to go back and forth what they want. So yeah, I think because of that, then we probably won't get that. But I think it'll still be interesting to see what happens with Windows or with Xbox mode coming over.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely check out the mode just 'cause I'm curious about it, but I doubt it would be something I would like really use. The only way I could see it being really nice to use would be if they brought in quick resume, because that is a really cool feature on Xbox. Like I checked it out on my nephew's Xbox and I was like, this is very, very cool, because you basically have a game entirely running in the background and it's not using up any resources. It's basically like low power, using no resources, but you can suspend the game and then you can come right back to it, and you can have multiple games all sitting there ready to jump back into at a moment's notice, and it picks up exactly where you left off. On Windows, you can't do that. You can't do it on PlayStation or anything else either, because yeah, you can put a system to sleep and then come right back to where you left off, but you can't suspend it to where the game is still technically open in the background without it still using up a bunch of resources. So that is the one feature I would love to see them do on PC, and I could see that being something where I would actually consider using it for like regular gaming just for that purpose. Now, I don't know how much I would actually use it, because I use my PC about 50-50 between gaming and not in gaming purposes. I mean, I do, video editing every week, and then I do, basic stuff like PowerPoint and whatnot. Word documents, that kind of stuff. Just very basic stuff in addition to all of the gaming stuff, and it's pretty evenly split, but I could still see it being useful for like, during a 24-hour live stream or something. Of course, then again, that would probably not work anyway, because of the fact that then I don't know if I'd be able to run things in the background for all the streaming setup. So it may not be like super practically useful for me, but especially for people who are coming over from Xbox to PC, or the new version of what Xbox is becoming, I could see that being really useful. Either way, if it's coming over, I will check it out just to see what it's like, for the sake of my own understanding. But most of the time, if I'm going to do something like that, I'm just doing big picture mode on Steam, and that's more than good enough for me. All right, the last question I have for you, this is another hypothetical question and probably won't have as much discussion. So, if your life was a comedy sitcom, would it have a laugh track, so like in front of a live studio audience, or would it be a mockumentary style, like The Office or Parks and Rec or Brooklyn Nine-Nine or what have you?
I would probably say it would be documentary style. I think that I just think my life is not necessarily that whole record before a live studio audience kind of thing. I think it's just, all right, we're here, we're there, we're doing this and that in that documentary style. So because of that, I think that's the way that's the way I think my life flows. And I think just because certain moments where I would find very comedic, it would just have that silent scene going on, but the audience would be able to still chuckle at those moments. So because of that, I would say it would be more documentary style and less laugh track style.
All right. I don't really have an answer for it. It's just a question I thought of, but I guess like thinking about it, I mean, the hard part about it is that like for one, I can't imagine my life being interesting enough to be like an actual sitcom, and if it was, it would have to be more like I'd have to have a catchphrase, like did I do that, or I don't know. But I just think of like various shows where they've had like dream episodes or whatever, where the main characters have imagined themselves in a sitcom, and someone walks on set and then it's like everybody's cheering, woo! and someone just saying like a random catchphrase, whatever it happens to be, and ha 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 ha. Yeah, I guess mine would probably be that mockumentary as well, and it would probably be very much similar to, not similar to like The Office in general, but more like similar to this first season of The Office where it wasn't funny for most of it, and it's like not until you get like the fourth episode where it's actually funny, and it might be funnier watching back at it after the fact because of how cringy it is, but I could see that pretty much being my life. Is like there's a lot more cringy moments than there are funny moments, and yeah. So yeah, mockumentary. I think that's where it has to be. But I'm not gonna. I don't know if I would be talking to the camera all the time, or looking at the camera like Jim.
I would also say that if my life were to be recorded as a sitcom, it probably would more so be while I'm at work, just because our team is sort of the office kind of team, where that is where a lot of our interactions are, I would just say, are the most humorous. So for that reason, I would say that if it were to be recorded, that's where it would be recorded. Granted, part of the time it would just be in our Slack messages, just be in our group chats, just because of that's primarily how we communicate. Even if we're in the office most of the time, just because of where we're located at, we will just be like sending messages in a group chat. But still, the discussions we do have though would still just like fit into that same sort of sitcom theme though.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got. Anything else from you?
I've got one more question, and this kind of was touched. This also was kind of touched a bit upon earlier, and it had to do with the future of physical with next generation. Of course, you mentioned what you thought about the PlayStation 6 having the add-on as the base model, but considering how the Helix is supposed to be backwards compatible with Xbox games, what do you think? I guess as far as the Helix games moving forward, especially with the Helix games in general, what do you think? And I guess specifically talking about the Helix console version, not like the PC side, obviously, but what do you think about physical in that regards?
So I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Do you mean like as far as, do you think that they're still going to support physical, or they're still going to make discs?
Yeah. Do you think? I guess my question is, because of backwards compatibility, there's that hint that you will be able to play your older games, at least the physical ones.
Yeah.
I think the digital ones you most likely will be able to play, but as far as like the physical games, do you think that will be supported as well? And do you think they will make physical Helix discs?
Gotcha. I think they will. I think it'll probably be the last generation they do that, but I do think that they will. Mostly because of the fact that if they're going to have that disc drive anyway for the physical games from Xbox 360 and Xbox One, and I guess even Series X and S, I think they pretty much have to continue to do physical games. Now, I guess I do think that there's probably not going to be as many that are all on disc. It's going to be more of the key disc kind of situation. I think that's going to be the direction that all the developers go for the most part, going forward for the next generation. I mean, Switch 2 has already gone that direction a lot, especially with third-party games, but even with like Pokemon Pokopia that just came out, that's a key card, even though it's technically partially a first-party game. And I think that everyone's just going to go full on that direction in the future. And I think that'll be the same with Xbox. Like I think this will be the last generation when you have any fully physical media where you have the majority of the game on the disc. because there's already plenty of discs out there that only have the installer and that's it. And you have to basically just download it.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this could be the last generation where we see that stuff, as you said. I mean, I think Microsoft, in general, I think even with the Series X and S, definitely the S was digital only, so that doesn't really count there, but with the X, there were definitely a lot more games where you had to have, the games where you had to have, where the disc essentially just acted as a key and you downloaded the full version.
Yeah.
And it definitely raised questions to me as far as what would happen with the next generation, and considering the fact that it does have that PC side of it, which is essentially all digital, and that obviously would mean that that side's gonna be digital there, and even if they do have, even with the backwards compatibility, I thought they might have native Xbox Helix discs, but at the same time, I don't know how many games will actually have that. It's like you said, they, with the disk drive, they're already being used, which I assume would be used, unless they decide, well, they would actually have to do it, because if they're going backwards, if they're trying to go back all the way to the original Xbox, that one didn't have digital, so they would have to use the disk drive for that. So it will be there, but so you would think they would make use of that and just say, all right, let's make some Helix discs, but at the same time, they might just not do that many, or as you said, they might mostly just be installers that you have to download. I saw something, and this is just something adding one. I saw something that was interesting about the argument for whether the full game should be available on the disc or not. And of course, I believe that if you're buying a disc, the game should be on there. And then I heard another argument saying that if the game is going to be running on the disc, we're reaching a point where the discs aren't fast enough. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought about, well, what if you do have the game on the disc, but you, instead of downloading it from, say, the servers, what if you just have the content on the disc and it just installs from the disc to the drive? Like, would that be a better compromise where, okay, sure, the game doesn't run off the disc, but you don't need the internet to install it? So in that sense, the game is all on the disc, but you just, but you can still sort of, I guess, take advantage of that better speed from running on like the actual SSD from the console rather than just spinning that way. So yeah, I guess because of that reason as well, that could be why we see physical phase outs, which I think is kind of definitely a big shame, because for people who want to collect games, it kind of damages like the collectability, because you don't have that game there, or it's tied to a server where you have to like rely on, say, hey, if I want to play this game 20 years from now, or if I want to buy a game 20 years from now for this console, can I actually do that without having to download from the cloud or something like that? Whereas say 10-15 years ago, if you went and bought a game for a console, you're like, all right, cool, just buy the game, pop it in, and start playing. But that's gonna be difficult in the future, and it also is just weird because because those games are also locked to that one particular system. So if you want to get a newer system and it's not in the disc or cartridge isn't compatible, then it makes things more difficult for you and you have to buy a new version. So yeah, physical is just, I think, going to possibly just be phased out at this point, and maybe the next generation will be the last one. We'll definitely have to wait and see. It'll be really weird seeing a Nintendo console without like some sort of cartridge.
They'll have
disc.
cartridges. They'll just be key cards.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I mean, they've already started that way, and the majority of third-party games are key cards anyway. So I think that's what they're going to be doing.
It's all key cards.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, one thing with the discs, like having all the information on their PS4 and Xbox One definitely had that already. I believe actually that's even been true with a lot of PS5 games and probably Series X and S. Well, really just Series X because S doesn't support discs, but I'm pretty sure. I think the way that it has worked in the past, if and I might be mistaken on this, but I know that the data is on the discs, especially because like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was 2 discs for the PS5, so the information was all there, but I'm not sure if it's actually playing the game off the disc or if it's just basically it installs the game off the disc and then the disc just basically acts as DRM. Basically just this is how, I mean, it periodically will spin so that it can check to see if the game, I mean, if you actually have the disc in there so that it knows that you do in fact own the game. Because I believe that was, I think that's how it worked, because like I remember plenty of times where I'd be playing physical PS4 games and it would just occasionally, I'd hear it spinning, but it wasn't spinning all the time. So
okay, I was not aware of that.
And I might be wrong. I might be understanding that incorrectly, but honestly, I'd have to do more research to find out for sure. I just know that there are times where I definitely hear the disc spinning, and then other times I didn't hear it. I just hear the fans running like a jet engine when playing something like Ghost of Tsushima or Horizon Zero Dawn or God of War. So, yeah. All right, good stuff. Anything else before we close out for the night?
Nope, that is the last topic.
All right, well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right. So I did not initially write down a recommendation, but I will, I guess, just recommend this. This is sort of like, I guess this one's sort of a classic, and this goes back to when we first started this podcast. That's going to be, if you haven't watched this before, I definitely recommend Batman the Animated Series. It's definitely a good, timeless watch, and I've decided to, I think, over maybe the next weekend, start watching some of it again. So, gonna get back to watching some of those episodes. So I definitely recommend it. It's great. You could watch it 10, 20 years from now, and it'll still be good, just because of the stories are just that good. The art style is great, and it's just phenomenal.
I need to try putting that one on for my kids again, because like I know that in the past, like, they didn't have as much interest, but they're all older now, to where I think they could be finally at the right age where if I put that on for them, it might actually grab their interest. So I'll have to try that again sometime soon, see if maybe they'd be interested enough to pay attention to it, because they're all over the place with these things. Sometimes it's like something grabs them and then they're just like hooked on it, and then other times they watch it for like 10 minutes or watch an episode and then they wander off and do something else. So I don't know.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, even when I was younger and I watched it and I was like, oh, hey, this is good, it wasn't until I even got a little older and I realized, wow, this is better than I even remember watching it, for whatever reason. So, I mean, they might like it more. Who knows?
Right. I mean, well, like, it started when I was like 5 years old. That's when it first started airing, and it grabbed me pretty well. Now, I didn't appreciate it to the extent that I do as an adult now, just realizing how well written it is and everything. But yeah, I mean, like, it grabbed me pretty easily, but there's also early 90s compared to today, when there's a whole lot of other distractions and stuff. So I don't know. All right. My recommendations. First of all, the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. Those movies are so fantastic. They're just really, truly great. We ended up watching the 3 over the weekend. Yeah, I mean it's been a while, but those movies just have held up really well. Like there's a couple of elements I'm just kind of like, but that's like two or three things. It's nothing like what they put out nowadays. And like I don't know anything about the live action movie other than the different casting for Astrid, but um the animated ones are all really excellent across the board as far as I'm concerned, and well worth watching still today. So that's my first recommendation. Secondly, in Death Stranding, pay attention to whether an order has a time requirement or not to save yourself a headache, because of course, obviously, if there's a time requirement attached to it, you obviously want to take the most efficient route you can, especially when you're doing the premium deliveries where it's a lot more picky on the standards, to be able to get the Legend of Legends rating. But if it doesn't have a time requirement, then you don't have to rush. You just have to focus usually on you're either getting a certain quantity or you're getting a cargo condition, at a certain point. So make sure when you're transporting those, especially the ones where the cargo condition is always important. Some of them it's just more important than others. But if you don't already have some on you, make sure to carry at least a couple, 1 or 2 cans of container repair spray, because that way, if you don't have any other way to repair it before it gets to the destination, then when you get to the destination, you can spray it right before you turn it in, and that way you get a much better score than you would get otherwise, but much better rating. So yeah, those are my recommendations.
I have not yet seen the How to Train Your Dragon films, although I constantly hear how good they are. I just have not had a chance, so I have to go ahead and get the collection at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find it cheap pretty easily. So definitely worth it. Cool. All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be: do not overbuy cheese, or don't buy more cheese than you will need, especially at within a certain period of time. I bought some cheddar last month, and initially I bought it because I knew I was going to be making some taco dip, and I was going to be making a few other things that would need it, and I said, all right, I know I'm getting a lot of cheese, I don't know exactly how much I'll need, but I'll just buy a good chunk of cheese and I'll be good to go and whatnot. So I did everything for that, and I've been using it here and there and whatnot. I'm like, all right, that's cool, that's great. Next thing I know, I come back near the end and I already see starting to mold, and I'm like, man, this is not good at all. So,
well, you can cut off the mold, and a lot of times the cheese underneath is still perfectly usable.
Yeah, I definitely did that. It's just that it was on several different spots, and then it was getting to be of a hassle trying to get past it, and I was like, all right. I mean, it was only about 25% of the cheese I had left over, so I wasn't too dismayed about that. But I just realized if I had bought less cheese, or if I bought smaller packs of cheese, then it would have been better. So that way, one pack would have been completely sealed and would have been fine for longer. But that was definitely just a good lesson though, for the future. So don't buy too much cheese at once, and if you do need cheese, or you think you might need more cheese, just buy it in smaller packs, so that way it won't spoil as quickly.
All right. I forgot to write down any dissuasions, so give me a second to think about it. I've been trying to remember, because it's like I had something earlier, and I'm pretty sure it was Death Stranding related. But, oh yes. When you are trying to get your premium deliveries taken care of, because if you're going for the achievements, you need it to have. There's one achievement that's 10 premium deliveries in each category that you have to get a rating of Legend of Legends, or Legend of Legends, and if you're trying to do those, one of the achievements you have to get 10, the other one you have to get 20, so it's 20 total. make sure, don't grab the same delivery twice or more for that matter, because it does not count towards that total if you do the same delivery twice. So it's perfectly fine if you're doing it for just raising your stats, raising your ratings on the star, delivery time for that. That's fine. But when you're specifically trying to get your 10 or your 20, especially with like the time focused ones, you have to make sure that you do 10 or 20 unique deliveries, so ones that you haven't already gotten that Legend of Legends rating, because otherwise you're just wasting time. So don't do the same ones twice when you're specifically trying to do it. Thankfully, they're all, once you've gotten that Legend of Legends rating, it's marked with a little yellow star on it, so you already know that you've completed that. So that's very helpful for that. I wish I had realized it sooner, because I definitely wasted some time from that. But I have I have 6 more time-focused ones I need to get, and then I will be completely done with all of those. So I'm close. I just have to find some. But I'm also trying to multitask at the same time and focus on getting the remaining stuff I need otherwise, and then I'm hoping that I can knock out 2 or 3 all at once. And yeah. So hopefully by this time next week, or by the time we record next, I'll have all the achievements, and hopefully we'll have started Death Stranding 2. But we'll see. Alright. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content yet. I still have to work on that one video, but I haven't even started getting all that stuff together. But once I start recording, then it'll just be a matter of going through everything. Earliest it might be is because we are mid-March with recording everything and then also editing everything. It might be early April-ish maybe when that comes out, but I might decide to possibly put out something that's beforehand, but it'll just be whatever catches my attention the most on that end. But then I do have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's @Justin's Bible Blog. I still have to work on the final touches of the one video I've mentioned, so I'm hoping to get that out this week, but we'll definitely have to wait and see. But I definitely think it should be out this week. It's just a matter of when rather than if. We'll just have to see on that end. But yeah, that's everything I have at the moment.
Alright, good stuff. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel @FrozenGamer87. I haven't put out anything new in a while. Last thing was my Why I Love PC Gaming video essay, as well, which is also broken up into separate segments if you prefer not watching an hour-and-a-half long video. But I am hoping to get to work on a few other videos soon. I was originally hoping to do it over this weekend, but timing didn't work out, and I just didn't get to it. So, and I already know that next weekend is probably not going to happen because of the marriage retreat, and I just don't know that I'm going to have time Saturday evening at all to work on that. So we'll kind of play it by ear. If I can fit it in and, am not just completely worn out after the trip, then I will try to get at least one thing recorded. But my goal is to at least get stuff out, get at least 1 or 2 of those videos out before I do my extra live stream on April 17th. So that is the goal at least, but we'll see what happens. There are the YouTube and Rumble channels for the podcast. On YouTube, that's @TheOrangeBox Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find us there. The video version goes live on both platforms at 7 a.m. Central Time every Friday, barring any technical issues. The audio-only version goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. And that is at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, barring any technical issues. And if you'd like to contact us, you can send us an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on the video version of the podcast on YouTube or on Rumble. And we will be sure to read your comment on the show, discuss it if you have a question, that sort of thing, and any sort of responses that we have on that front. But that is everything, I believe. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, live your life above 1080p 30 frames per second. Orange Box Podcast, out.